since the sheriff and Secret Service gave that press conference in Palm Beach. Give us the latest.
Yeah, let's break down exactly what they said at that conference and how this situation happened now that we have more information. So what we know is that Donald Trump was between the fifth and sixth holes at his golf course in West Palm Beach in Florida. Now, part of the Secret Service protection detail around him, part of their job during that time that he's on the golf course is to scan the area a couple of holes ahead of where he is to ensure that there are no threats. Now, it was during that scan that the agent, who was the scout agent, as it were, discovered this gun barrel poking through the line of trees, the bushes on the edge of the perimeter fence of the golf course. At that point, the agent shot rounds at the direction of that gun barrel, causing the would-be gunman to abandon his position and to flee in a black Nissan SUV. That fleeing was captured by a bystander who took pictures and had the wherewithal to do so, took pictures of that Nissan SUV, that 4x4 vehicle, and sent those pictures to the police. Because of that, law enforcement had a license plate that they could then use. They sent out what's called an APB, which is basically an alert for license plates to the local area. And that vehicle was then spotted by law enforcement in the neighboring county north of West Palm Beach in Martin County. And that black Nissan was then pulled over by police there, where the driver of that, a male driver, was then subsequently arrested and detained. We are learning now that the driver was unarmed when he was stopped, that he was calm, and that he didn't make any statements as he was being arrested. The bystander who took that picture of that black Nissan then was driven up to Martin County to identify the person that was in the car and was arrested, and gave a positive identification. And the area that he was seen fleeing from the bushes was then searched by law enforcement, and they found an AK-47 style rifle with a scope on it, 2 backpacks which had some ceramic tiles inside of it, and also a GoPro inside of the backpack as well. Now, we are learning from the press conference that took place between state and local and federal law enforcement and the Secret Service that the would-be gunman was about 400 to 500 yards away from where former President Donald Trump was. And that is important because that is roughly the scope range limit of an AK-47 style rifle. That is about the maximum distance that it is effective at, albeit it must be said it's not exactly one of the most accurate rifles on the market. It is much less accurate, for example, than an AR-15 style rifle, a rifle which has become almost infamous in the United States for its use by gunmen in mass shootings and deadly atrocities across the country. So this gunman is now in police custody. The law enforcement there are still working to assess exactly why he was there with that rifle. Obviously, this is now being treated as an attempted assassination by the FBI, but whether this man was known to law enforcement is remaining to be seen. But they will be releasing his name, his picture in the coming hours, and we will learn more about him at that moment. But right now, there will be a sigh of relief that the Secret Service managed to act quickly and managed to spot this barrel poking out of the trees and managed to act with suppressing fire, which ultimately averted what could be a much more catastrophic situation.
Yeah, that's right, Fraser. And we were in a similar position just a few months ago when the first assassination attempt took place against Donald Trump's life in July while he was giving a rally. Is the Secret Service in hot water here?
I think it's impossible for there not to be some questions around the Secret Service, given the fact that, you know, there have been 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump now within 3 months, really, and we haven't seen anything like this in 40 years in American history. So it is becoming far too common in that sense. There will definitely be questions, but it must also be said the Secret Service have an almost impossible job to do. You know, they're playing with such high stakes mistakes, that they have to get it right every time, and they only have to get it wrong once for potentially a disaster to strike. It is a much more difficult environment for the Secret Service to fulfill their duties and to carry out their protection role in somewhere like this golf course in West Palm Beach, in that field in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the first assassination attempt took place on July 13th. Those big, wide open spaces are much more difficult to lock down. So there will be questions, however, as to how a gunman would be able to get to the perimeter fence of Trump's property with an AK-47 style rifle, and will have been able to get within that distance of the president, the former president. That will definitely be a question, and there will be questions as to whether the Secret Service acted appropriately, and whether this could have been avoided. No doubt there will be various questions coming their way over the course of the next few days. One Florida congressman has already called for the Secret Service to testify to Congress about how this could have happened. Of course, that is also something that we saw in the wake of the Butler, Pennsylvania attempted assassination, which actually resulted in the head of the Secret Service stepping down and resigning as well. I think we should also read into something the fact that the Secret Service were at this press conference in West Palm Beach, albeit they didn't really say much. It was a very quick statement from the Secret Service field office agent there. But I think that is a sign that they are trying to be more transparent in the way that they handle their business and the way that they interact with the public. They are not known for their transparency. They're called the Secret Service for a reason. But I think the fact that they were at this press conference and trying to show that they were more open to the public scrutiny, I think it is a significant step away from what we saw in the aftermath of the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt.
And Fraser, we have been hearing from Donald Trump already since this assassination attempt happened. Tell us what he's been saying.
Yeah, he sent out a campaign fundraising email off the back of this event. He's also updated the front page of his website. It now reads, "Fear not, I am safe and well, and no one was hurt, thank God. But there are people in this world who will do whatever it takes to stop us. I will not stop fighting for you. I will never surrender. I will always love you for supporting me. Through our unity, we will make America great again." That then posted above a couple of links before where people can donate to his campaign, the highest donation level of which is $3,300 if you don't want to add your own amount to it. And that line, I think that stands out the most, is but there are people in this world who will do whatever it takes to stop us. In the wake of Butler, Pennsylvania, remember his campaign said that he was going to be striking a tone of unity to try to tone down the national rhetoric, to try to bring the country together again. This clearly not something that he is looking to do this time round, and also that similar sentiment being shared by a couple of his most ardent supporters on Capitol Hill. If you look to the Twitter account of Marjorie Taylor Greene, she posted on X just shortly after the assassination attempt, "They tried to assassinate President Trump again today for the second time. The stakes of this election are literally life or death. I'm praying for his safety and all those around him. I'm thankful for each and everyone that guards his life and his family." So already the blame game starting here underneath Kamala Harris's tweet, where she posted that she was being kept abreast of the situation and said that she's glad that he's safe. She ended that tweet by saying, "Violence has no place in America." Well, underneath that tweet, there were already some supporters of Donald Trump who were saying that it was her fault that this atmosphere of hatred and divisiveness had been allowed to fester and had allowed this kind of situation to arise. So this is a very polarized country, of course, and it is perhaps no great temperature take on Twitter. It tends to be, a very extreme one way or another on Twitter. The most diehard supporters of the left or the right tend to be the ones that are commenting on it. But if you look at just some of the mentions that have taken place on Twitter, there's certainly no sense of national unity really coming through from Donald Trump supporters, at least at the moment.
Extremely polarizing rhetoric, as you just mentioned there. How are the American public likely to be feeling at the moment, hearing this news that a second assassination attempt has taken place against Trump?
I mean, they're likely to be really, and this is not something which takes place even in America, which has, the highest level of gun crime in the world. This is not something which happens every day. An attempted assassination on a political leader, especially somebody of Donald Trump's stature, a former president no less, it is likely to impact people. But speaking more broadly, gun crime in this country is nothing new. It happens daily somewhere in the United States. The latest stats up until the end of August, there have been 432 mass shootings this year alone. That is just until the end of August. Now, to be defined as a mass shooting, that is something that needs to have at least 4 people impacted to be termed a mass shooting. This is not anything new, and it is something that is constantly argued over. It was being argued over at the presidential debate just last week about gun control. It is something which comes up time and time again, but ultimately the United States has not moved one way or another on this. Bump stocks and different assault rifle bans and background checks are something that have been floated numerous times to see if they could limit the amount of weapons that are in people's hands in this country. But this does remain a uniquely American problem. There are a vast amount of guns in this country, more weapons than there are people. And in the state of Florida, where the shooting took place, there were over 1.3 million weapons sold just in 2023, which is 1.3 million weapons in a state that has just over 22 million people living in it. So it is a huge amount of weapons that we are talking about. And any time that something tries to get passed to try to limit the amount of weapons that get into people's hands in the country, they tend to get pushed back upon by normally the right-hand side of the American political spectrum. There has been a ban on assault weapons that was introduced in the 90s, which was on for 10 years, but ultimately it expired and so far has not managed to get revived. And that kind of weapon ban would impact the type of weapon that was used in this incident, the AK-47 style rifle, but also the kind of weapon that is normally more broadly used in these kinds of shootings, the AR-15 assault rifle as well. So whether this, though, will change the temperature, will move the needle, remains to be seen. I think a lot of us who live in the United States and hear these shootings or daily or hear about the reports of them, you tend to be a bit more jaded about it as to whether progress can actually really happen to make the streets safer and to take away the level of gun crime that we are seeing nationally. But at the moment, it seems that really isn't a conversation that's going to be happening, at least not in the immediate aftermath of this kind of incident. It's probably going to take a little bit of time before that national discourse starts once again.
And Fraser, we're of course in the midst of an election campaign. We're only a few months until people in the US go to the ballot box to cast their vote between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. How is this event likely to impact the race to the White House?
Of course, everyone is thankful that Donald Trump is safe in the aftermath of this event, but it's impossible, and at the risk of sounding insensitive, it is impossible to escape the fact that this is taking place against that broader background of the election. And of course, rhetoric in the United States has been so heated over the course of at least certainly the last decade, but the last few months especially, things have really taken a turn and really we're almost in uncharted political waters in the United States. If you think back 2 months to when Donald Trump had that first attempt on his life in July 13th in Pennsylvania, that took place when Joe Biden was the person who was standing against Donald Trump. And I think a lot of people, when that happened, thought that this basically was Donald Trump's election to lose. But really, things have shifted so monumentally since that took place. And now Kamala Harris is on the top of of the ticket, and the momentum seemed to be moving in her direction. The Democratic Party was much more united. There was much more energy coming out of the Democratic base, and that was interesting to see, because up until that point, all of the energy and all of the belief that they were going to win was coming from the Republican side. We were at the RNC, the Republican National Convention, just days after Donald Trump had that assassination attempt on his life. Of course, you'll remember the ear pillow that he was wearing, the bandage, the dressing, and we saw a plethora of people wearing those on their ears in support of Donald Trump at the RNC, and there was a real party atmosphere there, a real festive atmosphere. That's now iconic image taken by my colleague Evan at the AP with Donald Trump with his fist in the air saying "fight, fight, fight." That was emblazoned across T-shirts and flags and mugs, and used by Donald Trump himself in his campaign videos. And there was a real sense that this was their election to lose, and it basically was a shoo-in for them. Well, that now is a completely different picture to what we're seeing in the current moment. Since Kamala Harris took over the top of the Democratic ticket, a lot of the national political oxygen, the headlines, have been dominated by her campaign, and Donald Trump had struggled to kind of get that momentum back. That it started to shift somewhat negatively in some views of his campaign within the last week. In the wake of the debates, arguably he had a poor performance there, but he was gaining a lot more of the national headlines, arguably for the wrong reasons. Mainly because he was talking about the debunked claims that Haitian migrants were eating dogs and cats and the pets of the people in Springfield, Ohio. But he was back in the headlines, and Donald Trump is somebody who likes to be in the headlines. He's somebody who likes the spotlight to be on him. But it has been for all the wrong reasons over the course of the last couple of months, and now once again it is because of one of the most potentially tragic reasons. We will be thankful, therefore, that Donald Trump is safe, but how this assassination attempt now will impact the race and what its ramifications will be going forwards is going to be interesting to see, because the situation we're in now is completely different to the situation we were in during the first attempt on his life back in July.
Fraser Jackson, our correspondent there in Washington, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed there. That's Fraser Jackson reporting on our top story.